Good evening, good morning, good night, wherever you may be. Welcome to another episode of Living World of Darkness, Vampire Venue, New York by Night. Tonight's scene is part of a series, hopefully, A Night to Remember. It's going to be a couple discussions first, starting with Vasily, Madame Monroe, and Emily Stevenson, the Hound of the City. We will be having a brief little powwow. He's contacted both of them and asked that he be able to have a meeting with them at Ghost's Club. Most expedient place, since Monroe isn't going to be seen too far away from there at the moment. He's going to arrange to head over there, and if he gets favorable responses from the others, expect to see both of them. He's also sent messages to Ghost and to Damien, but if they don't show up, well. So he arrives at the club and presumably is allowed in.
Slightly not anxious, but an Emily on guard, not necessarily for an attack, but for another event at this club, like the last time she met Vasily here. She seems a little guarded, maybe. But she just walks in and she sees Vasily at some point. She'll just look over at him, just say,
Velvet
"Hi."
Velvet blows you a kiss as you go through a strip club.
She'll just nod, just yeah. I haven't called you, but I will. She again with her very blunt nature, just doesn't really know what to say, and she just I got a thing, and she goes over to Vasily. She seems
All
a
right.
little annoyed, but
Vasily
again,
just kind of,
it's mixed with something else as well.
yeah. Vasily just kind of smiles and kind of he doesn't even try to have this conversation out in the main strip club. He's just now that he's caught you, nods his head over towards Ghost's office, and presumably because Monroe is there and can let them in, presumably
Yeah,
he'll.
this is all
Sorry, go ahead.
this is all preserving a lot. But I wanted
know.
to roll to see. Oh no, your dress doesn't go so well.
Isn't that's D6s, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
thank
those are
God. Thank God.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wait, that's the wrong color dye.
D6s are making it unreasonably hard for yourself.
I got a 1 in 6 chance of a basic success.
Oh, you know.
Wah. Oh, thank Jesus.
Much better.
Okay, so
5 successes. What did you do?
Oh, I'm making a gown for Emily.
Oh, awesome. Okay, so he heads to Ghost's office door, knocks. He's obviously let Monroe know ahead of time he'd be there.
Okay, and Monroe has presumably cleared this through Ghost herself, so she opens the door. She's wearing her Mask of a Thousand Faces. She does have on it's a pair of like blue jeans that's been have been deconstructed and fashioned into like a gown. And she lets them both in. Hey, come in, please. Pleasure to see you both.
Thank
Emily.
you, thank you.
Pleasure.
Emily perks up a bit. And she's, hey, Monroe. Is Ghost around? Or
She's unfortunately, business has called her away, so I'm not sure if she's going to be able to make our little meeting. But you can rest assured that I will definitely let her know everything that transpires.
Of course. I was hoping she'd be able to attend, but
did Ghost get her my message last night?
She did. She did. Somewhat distressed by the tone, but she did get the message. We haven't had much opportunity to discuss the matter in depth, but our time is coming.
It's just I don't know who this new guy is, but that Anarch was trouble.
Mm.
Oh, I guarantee it. Don't worry. He kind of looks over at Emily. You're not the only person who sent her a heads up. But I'm fairly sure that they won't cause too much trouble in town. Openly or as obviously as this, attacking a Camarilla member, an Anarch would be disavowed even by their own people. And they'd be up for grabs.
Well, let me extend thanks from Ghost. I'm sure she appreciated your you're communicating that information so quickly. I'm sure she I'm sorry. I'm sure she valued that quick and speedy communication greatly.
Of course. So, hopefully, at some point we may be joined by Ghost or by Damien. I invited him as well to this particular gathering, but if neither of them arrive, then, well, we'll have to catch up with them later.
Ah.
I was hoping to explain a few things. Explain. No, I don't have that accent, thank God. Explain. Okay, so, anyways. Vasily, sits, makes himself comfortable. He's like, all right. So, I don't know if either of you are particularly connected with the recent underworld things that have happened of late, or have any knowledge of them. Kind of looks questioningly at you both.
Emily looks like she's about to. She's trying to not to laugh, but she looks like she's almost shaking her head at you. A little like, are you serious?
He doesn't know what you do in your spare time.
All right, but nonetheless, like Emily's just like, no, I don't.
All right, and he looks over at Monroe. I know Ghost has some connections. Not sure if they extend to you.
I've heard. My little birds have told me something of the troubles that are currently befalling our illustrious city.
Well, let me shed some light on it then. The details as I understand it. And I'll leave you free to make whatever interpretations you wish afterwards. I'd be curious what they are, to see if I'm crazy for my own. Here's how it basically boils down. 2 Yakuza members were, for some reason, in the territory of the Triad. They were in a restaurant. They died. That's all we know. The Triad denies any involvement. The Yakuza deny involvement other than the fact their people were there and died. I've heard no other explanation beyond that as to why they were there. The 2 have joined forces to find a appropriate scapegoat. Oh, I'm sorry, to investigate the actual killer. But in all seriousness, every family in town has denied involvement. The Italians denied, and one of their dons actually attended the funerals. The Irish denied it and pointed their fingers towards, quote-unquote, the Russian family. Now, Ghost knows a few of the so-called Russian family members. I do their bookkeeping. They're not even a family. They're more like 4 businessmen who deal a little bit in illicit substances, but not even drugs. More like sex trafficking, guns, that sort of thing. Just 4 individual businessmen who loosely cooperate. We don't have a lot of territory. We don't have a lot of men. We don't have a lot of guns, despite the fact we're gun runners. How sad is that? So, all in all, they're not a threat to anyone right now. They have literally no motivation for this crime.
Except they apparently are a threat to someone because someone has made sure that the finger has been pointed directly upon the Russian.
It may help if I explain the one person in the city who I know has significant pull among the Irish mob. Sam Spillane.
Why is that not a surprise? Emily just says very dry. She just sits down.
Because he seems to be a bit of an asshole. But I have not approached him about this matter. But I am fairly certain that this is an attempt to discredit me and to cut off my resources and my influence. I'm not surprised, especially with the way the new girl was looking at me. I find it odd. When I arrived, I sent proper word ahead to both Sam and Gwen and Seneschal and even Budge. She sent no notice to me.
Who is this Sam? I don't know her or him.
Sorry, go ahead. You go.
Sam Spillane. He's he seems to be a big shot. Kind of a wise guy. he wants, I think he's angling if this, whatever he does for a living, doesn't work out. He wants a new part in one of the new, Scorsese movies, like a gangster or something.
Ah, I see.
He's a Ventrue, and his plan is to take over Staten Island as soon as the Sabbat are removed.
Huh.
He was working on that even before a certain Toreador Primogen was revealed to be a traitor. But in any case, he is the only person I know of with any significant influence, and he has reason to discredit me at this point. I'm not your typical... He's trying to think how to explain it. I'm not your typical blue blood.
Sure.
I think that's kind of an understatement.
I'll auto fail, and Emily just says, "What do you mean by that?" And you can totally sure that she knows
Sarcasm.
exactly what you mean, but she's just like,
He just kind of looks at you. He knows you're joking, but he just looks at you.
No, well,
looks
actually,
at...
maybe her trying to be polite that like you're not so different, but it's just falls completely flat, and she's just like,
False sympathy, basically. Like, oh no, it's not that bad, really. You're kind of like a Ventrue.
It's kind of that, but it's just so ham-handed and ham-fisted that it's comes across as very fake.
He just kind of looks at her, looks over at Monroe, kind of nods his head towards Emily. Know any Ventrue who'd buy her a stripper for a lap dance?
I'm afraid I don't, actually.
Yeah, that's part of the reason why I'm probably being targeted for this sort of thing. I don't subscribe to the typical high clan boorishness. I have no problem being a member of the high clans. I have the highest respect for my lineage, my history, the clan's history. I'm older than both of the other Ventrue in the city combined. But I don't have any wish to be rude or to lord that fact over members of the so-called low clans. I'll be honest. Any low clan member in the city could probably beat the crap out of me. Both of you included, I'm sure.
So what do we know of this Sam Splain?
All I know is that he's a Ventrue. I could give you his age, roughly 25 years as a vampire. He's of the 9th generation. He has control over the Irish Mafia. And I'm sure other resources as well, but I believe he said he has some control over the street gangs. Which gives him a slightly different role.
And he is of some standing. He did help out with the Ret Lister once that whole thing went down.
Yes. Since then, he has been rather inactive. But I believe he's been biding his time. When the lovely Miss Duval arrived last evening, that gave him an opportunity. Not last evening, recent evening, sorry. That gave him a bit of an opportunity. Miss Duval has a prestigious heritage. Her sire's an Archon. And that means that she is quite prepared to, well, she can say what she wants to me, and already has, but it won't, let's just say that it wouldn't take much to devalue my position to the point where she could easily take my spot. I'm not worried about that so much. I mean, let's be honest. If she became the Primogen now and inherited everything that I have, the connection to the Anarchs, the connection to the Nosferatu, and so on and so forth, I don't have any real concern over that. I don't think she'd have much success in trying to use you fine fellows against me. Especially if she treats you folks the way she treats me.
Wow. Well, she seems like quite the peach.
Indeed.
Well, I did a little talking to her. She didn't seem... Well, I didn't get much of an impression of her, to be honest.
Seemed like she rather had a thing for you, actually. He kind of seems amused at that.
Moreau just kind of casts a sidelong look at Emily just to size her up at that. Trying to see if Emily maybe has a thing for this new venture as well. She expects that Emily isn't very good at hiding her emotions, but she doesn't look at her long.
You can take a just take a perception empathy roll, and I'll
Shit, I'll go for
like
it too.
I'm gonna roll my 2 dice in manipulation subterfuge.
3 successes!
I have 1 success.
So I surpassed you.
Yeah, you both did. She
Actually,
says,
no.
Actually, I only have one success.
So
Ah.
she fails. I succeed. Haha.
Emily just says like she just shrugs and she seems she doesn't seem as hostile to like that person, but then again, from what you know, they've only met and spoken for like a couple of minutes.
Right, it's very new, if anything, so it's hard to
So,
tell.
but you don't get any like maybe a hint of interest.
Okay.
Maybe it looks like Emily thinks a little about this person once she's been mentioned. It looks like she's thinking about something, um, and it's not like she's either formed an alliance or is wanting to like hump her leg or anything.
Oh, the imagery. Oh, the imagery.
Oh, yes. Indeed, what do you say?
It's much more neutral or so maybe it's just like she's not openly hostile to the idea of
Right.
entry. So
Right. Okay, that's interesting. Awesome.
All
Thank you. Thank you.
So with that, he kind of like hesitates for a second and goes, so, essentially, here's the thing. The Russians, if I leave things as they are, will quickly be destroyed. Because it seems, like I said, we have no leaders at the moment. There's just a couple of mutually interested businessmen. None of them want the responsibility of denying this because they know it would make them a target. So they're all trying to pretend this never happened.
Mhm.
That's not going to work out well. That'll result in the entire group being wiped out. They're barely even a roadblock for the Irish mob as things stand. And then the Irish mob gets to take over the territory. I lose my influence and lose position within the city. All to their advantage. But you see, there is an advantage to being around as long as I have been. You learn to plan. And plan quickly when the case comes up. Here's a bit of a hypothetical example. And he kind of hesitates for a second. He's like, All right, here's the example. First thing I would probably do is ensure that we have a leader. I have an ally within the quote-unquote Russian mafia who could easily become a leader if I were to gather the other members together and push them a little bit. It'd be easy to make them pick someone else to be their scapegoat in the hopes that at least he would be destroyed and not them. That person will immediately send out not a admission of guilt, but simply an apology for the delay, deny everything, of course, and explain that we do not have the capability or capacity to have pulled this off, let alone the motivation. We stand to gain nothing by doing this at all. That's the first step. The second step and the third step are a bit more interesting. Essentially, the one thing I am gifted at, if I have any pride, is the ability to manipulate others. Specifically with the art of presence. If we can get a member or two of the Irish Mafia close enough for me to affect them and have a nice little chat with them, I have 2 ideas. First, we're going to have one of them arrange to have a little bit of a party. He's going to have a long, wild night. He's going to visit a few, shall we say, ladies of the evening, enjoy himself, go from place to place, think nothing of it, head home, all happy. Except, what he doesn't know is we'll be leaving a bit of a trail behind him. A trail of corpses. Vasily is like not even batting an eye at suggesting just randomly killing hookers, I should point out. I mean, it's not random, but...
Emily actually just looks up at you. Just her bit relaxed or somewhat what shall we say, reserved nature kind of sinks into the background. She just perks up, straightens up, and just begins to look at you. And she looks very focused at this point.
Essentially, we'll leave a couple of dead hookers behind him. I'm not saying that this is something we want to do just for the hell of it. This is something we're doing for a very specific reason. Leaving a couple dead hookers is not enough to cause consternation. It would be more of a quaint mystery to these people. But I have connections within the police department. It won't be hard to leave an anonymous tip for the Vice Squad. Now, even then, the Vice Squad investigating a couple of murders, even if we plant a little bit of evidence for them to find, it's not going to be that big a deal. Until we plant the evidence and have them go after this person. Then, we find this person again that evening. We ensure that the timing is right so that the following evening that person will be implicated and will be at that point on the run, shall we say. But rather than let them go to ground, we'll find them, encounter them. We'll have to have this prepared ahead of time, of course, and convince them that the only way to go out is in a blaze of glory. Convince them that the best course of action is to make a mark. Convince them to go off and take a few cops with them. Now, whether they're successful or not, I imagine someone with that kind of standing could probably take down someone in the force. If they succeed in doing
Emily
this.
puts her hand up, and she just says,
Go ahead.
"You've got a problem. I can understand that. This relates to ghosts. I get that. And also Limey, right? Limey is involved with them as well, right?
Not as far as I'm aware. I've never even met Limey,
But
to be
you
honest.
want a plan that is not officially sanctioned, where we kill hookers and police officers. Huh. Indirectly, but...
Very indirectly. Discretion would be of the utmost importance in this.
And we're doing this towards another member of the Ventrue.
We're doing this to ensure that this will not become a further problem. The Irish Mafia is in a place right now where they could cause considerable damage. And personally, I don't trust Sam's discretion in this matter, especially combined with his influence over the street gangs. Quite frankly, I'm not sure his motivations
I'll
can be
talk to
trusted.
Limey. I'll talk to Limey, but...
I don't know Limey. I've never met Limey. I don't know that I would want Limey aware that one Ventrue is, frankly, plotting anything against another Ventrue.
You're not going to kill police officers as part of some plan against another guy. Not what I'm here.
We're not going to kill the police officers.
My official position is Hound. I'm not going to assist in the murder of police officers, which is going to call an ungodly amount of heat down on us.
Not on us. There's a way to handle it.
Plans,
We're not going to kill it. We are not
plans
going to
go wrong,
Yes,
and
they
people
do.
find out shit.
Yes, they can, but not in this case. Listen for a moment. We're not talking about going out and killing a couple of cops. We're not talking about killing cops and trying to hide the evidence that we killed cops. We're not talking about being in the same vicinity as a couple of dead cops. We're talking about finding an individual who's already afraid of the cops and convincing them to go after them. They might not even succeed. I personally think they'll probably take one down, and one is enough. That will cause considerable heat to fall, but not on the Supernaturals. There's no reason to suspect supernatural involvement in that.
And that's not my only problem. You don't think that's slightly fucked up?
Which part?
Just killing people for convenience? She seems
They've already killed two people.
very,
so they're
very serious now. She seems
They've already
actually
killed
been
two people.
angry. She
They've
just
already killed. Sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
They've already killed two people for their convenience, and they're planning to wipe out however many people you think would be involved in the Russian operation. There aren't that many of us, granted, but I guarantee you they'd be wiped out to the last. My ghoul is actually part of their group, and would probably be hunted as well, unless I made her disappear. Her father is a ranking member of that organization. You begin to see the picture? This attack is not something random involving business interests. This is almost personal for me.
I must say your plan is very Machiavellian, and I definitely can appreciate its intricacies, but it has far too many moving pieces to be successful.
It's a little bit simpler than it sounds, honestly. It boils down to this. Implicate a man in a murder. Convince him to go out. He dies. That is tied off. Even if he's captured, the most he's going to say is that someone convinced him to do it. I won't be there in simple... Yeah. The most he can do is point the finger at someone whose name he won't even know. I highly doubt they'll let him live long enough, frankly. But in any case...
Well, at the moment, I am merely a fledge, so I cannot commit myself to any action. But I have heard your plan, at least.
You've heard a tiny part of it, but
there's more.
since... The whole point of this was to make sure that my interests and my ghoul and her family are not destroyed at the whim of someone trying to curry favor with a higher-ranking member of our family.
Indeed. And trust me, I think what isn't coming across is that we are very sympathetic to that end. We're definitely exceedingly sympathetic to that end. Not exactly married to this plan, though.
If you've got some non-violent alternatives, I'd be interested in hearing them. I'm simply pointing out the most expedient option.
Sure, definitely. Expediency is always direct, but sometimes problematic. Why would you think this Sam would move against clan convention and strike out against you?
I thought we already covered that, but to be brief...
Well, I did hear your rationale behind that. It just seemed trivial, but if that was the only reason that he's choosing to strike out against you, then I could accept that for the truth. I was just seeking to confirm that since you went against the grain as a member of Clan Venture, that was the reason he was actually striking out against you.
I believe the only reason he's chosen to do anything now is because there's now another member in town for him to impress. The Ventrue may have every intention of making it seem like we don't act against each other. All that means is reprehensible to be seen doing
If you can
this.
prove it, you're Primogen, right? You could actually just officially, reprimand him, couldn't you?
If one could prove it, certainly. I don't have any connection within the Irish Mafia to prove it.
Well, why don't you just, instead of convincing people to kill other people, why don't we just, I don't know. I could beat the shit out of some of them, and you can interrogate them. You could just.
My ghoul is actually skilled at interrogation. We could easily find someone from the Irish mob and bring them in for that.
We're not going to kill them. We're not going to kill them. We're just going to see what they know.
I didn't say we would kill them. But I'm saying that we would have to find someone who would be high-ranked enough within their organization to know this.
But we could do it without killing people and without involving the police. If you get your evidence, you can actually, from your position, your official position, chew his ass out because he's officially fucking with you.
Yeah.
Right?
If he was
potentially.
If he was
going against your Primogen, in the Clan Ventru. I mean, I've heard of bad ideas, but I think that's fairly bad. Just
Not
generally.
when the Primogen is on the verge of being chewed out, shall we say. Like I said,
Who
only
who
thing that kept.
cares? Who cares if you've got evidence presented to the Primogen says like this neonate is fucking with me and I'm going to punish him. They're not going to be able to say shit. You could do it with your full right to punish him, to reprimand him, right?
Theoretically, there is some precedent.
You know, she's I think Spillane actually got got schooled by Mr. Brooks before he went weird. I think he got his finger cut off because he was insolent to someone.
Mm.
Wouldn't
Didn't
surprise me.
Well, you could use that. Like this guy is completely uncontrollable. I think he insulted. Well, I shouldn't bring up Rose, but look, this guy insults people above his station, and he paid for it before, and now he's going against his Primogen. What the fuck? I mean, just use it that way, and if you've got proof, then he's fucked.
Hmm.
Do you feel that this may not be enough?
If we had, let's assume for a moment that we know some definites. Let's assume for the moment that he is definitely behind this. Right now, he is simply the absolutely most likely and probable culprit. Let's assume we knew for a fact he was behind this, and we simply have to find proof of it. We find an individual within the Irish mob who presumably has enough information to incriminate him, enough to point the finger and say, yes, he did this, he was the one who pointed us towards this, he arranged the deaths of the Yakuza members, and so on and so forth. It would all seem a little out of the way, but let's assume we could do that. Physical evidence may be hard to encounter because the physical crime scene and so on is, well, it's already been locked down and swept clean by now, I'm sure, but by the Yakuza and Triad, which I don't really fancy our odds of getting past them to investigate anything. So we'd have to be relying on word of mouth, one man's word against someone else's. If we could actually find someone who has knowledge of this, interrogate them, get their confession, and record it, that could be done. And it could be used as evidence against him. But, it would have to be kept internal for obvious reasons. That is not... When situations like this occur and it becomes known to a Ventru that another Ventru has worked against them and they have evidence to prove it, we don't bring it up in a public forum. I will never take him in front of some other room full of individuals and say he has betrayed our clan and so on. No, because it can never be said that that has happened.
I see.
Instead, what we would have to do is hold a private boardroom meeting and dispense justice accordingly, however that might be.
I see.
Now, the other problem is, in the very near future, we are due to have such a meeting. And the Archon is going to be attending. It's very possible that within a few nights, I may not be the Primogen of the city. Miss Duval may be. In which case, I no longer have the discriminate authority to convince anyone of anything. I would be bringing my evidence to a very biased judge.
Or it could be very possible if he was so discredited that you might still hold that seat, or at least Miss Duval's ear against a so discredited member of her clan.
Well, the only downside is that even if I bring the evidence and convict him easily in the jury of his peers, there would be at that point 4 Ventru within the city. 4 votes to be cast. The Archon presumably would not cast, and Budge, for his own reasons, does not vote. This would leave myself, Gwen, and Sam, and Duvall. Sorry, phased out for a second. With the four of them, Gwen will not vote for me. She did not vote for me the first time. When there were three of us in town, I got the position simply by convincing Mr. Spillane to vote for me. In this case, it was more of a lesser of two evils. He didn't want the job himself. So, if I cannot count on Gwen's vote, and can in fact count on the opposite, and I cannot count on Miss Duvall's vote, and in fact can count on the opposite, and then I move on to confront and prove the guilt of another member of my clan, and they call for a vote for a new Primogen, I won't get the position. I don't care who will, but there's no way in hell none of the other three in town would have any reason to vote for me. But honestly, if you look at it that way, I'm not going to be Primogen anyways for a couple days, and there's nothing I can do about it.
It is definitely quite a sticky mire of a situation.
Honestly, as I said, I'm not that concerned with actually being the Primogen. I can do what I wish without being the Primogen. But I would say, if you find the idea too distasteful, we need not pursue it. The idea was simply to make sure that my family was exonerated, and that if his was responsible, would be discredited. But if that is not acceptable, then we will have to try it another way.
Well, Emily looks. No, she says, "Look, if you have like some ghouls or stuff that needs protecting, I'll pitch in on that. All right. I mean, if someone needs to look out for some people, I'll help you out with that. All right."
I'm sure you would have no problem if you met her, but as I said, that is simply one concern.
I know.
I do not want
I'm not too keen on the idea of just killing people left and right, and just there's too many problems with that. You can tell that Emily's probably not. She's not that uncomfortable with the idea because she wasn't disgusted and didn't leave, but she still irks her a bit. And still, it's probably also her conscience nagging at her at this point.
Vasily doesn't seem angry or anything. And I'm not going to roll perception because he's not hiding this or anything. Vasily doesn't seem angry. He's more like, oh well, what could I expect? For him, this is a simple idea. For other people, this is either too convoluted or it's enough to make some people squeamish. But hey, most people start that way when they first become kindred. So, yeah. Kind of thinks for a minute. He's like, well, we'll have to find an alternative then. As I said, next few days will probably determine whether I remain Primogen. If I'm not, then this will become a slightly different matter to deal with.
Look, I'll help you out with quite a lot of things. The problem is I'm also having a tight schedule. There's a thing that come out I need to devote my most attention to. It's on. I can't even talk about it, but it's.
We all have personal things to deal with. It's all right.
But I'll be in touch, and I'll help you out. But just like a planet involves that much, potential, questions from higher up is, it's something I do a really, really hefty job of avoiding as much as I can.
Understandable. I would ask, though, that since that is no longer the plan, a little discretion. As I said, I do not know Limey. For all I know, Limey would not hold my best interests in this matter. Please don't spread it to them. I am fine with 4 people, other than my ghoul, knowing what I had in mind. 2 of them are in this room. The other 2 would be Ghost and Damien.
I won't tell him unless he begins to ask me.
How comforting. But if that's the best you can offer, I understand.
Look, he's my boss, and
I understand.
I'll get fired if I'm lucky.
Oh, trust me, in that situation, it'd be far worse. I understand the position you're in.
Yeah.
Well,
it's clear that Emily's not too happy about this because she wants to. You can kind of tell that she probably wants to help, but there's a multitude of things that makes this not acceptable for Emily. It's fairly clear.
well, with that, then, there's probably not too much else to say on the matter.
All right. Look, I'll be in touch. Keep me posted. I'll look into it. I mean, I might have an idea, if she looks at it. I just need to think, but I'm actually also have an idea how to solve some of this.
I'd be kind of curious as to what that is.
Still need to work out the details, but...
Well, all I'll say then is try to keep me informed on it before you embark on whatever the plan is. Always
yeah,
helps
well,
to keep your allies.
it's not something I would do alone, don't worry.
All right.
But it's just something I need to check up on. And Emily said, but it was nice seeing both of you, and she just looks to Monroe. Oh, and do say hi to Ghost for me, and yeah. And she just nods to the both of you, and she will bid farewell once more, and she will leave.
Have a good evening, Emily.
Same to you, Monroe, Vasily. Monroe.
Vasily bids her good night.
Hmm.
And that leaves Vasily and Monroe sitting in the room. Vasily, now that Emily's out of the room, looks a bit more disappointed. Not like disappointed in her as a person, more disappointed like, well, damn, that was an idea.
Like, oh, it was perfect, and now it won't work. Yeah, that happened. But
Well, shame I don't have a life boon to call in on a time like this.
well, we have a whole other brain that hasn't been tapped here, so perhaps
2 of them, actually.
Perhaps with their vaunted resources and contacts, there may be another solution that we weren't able to stumble upon tonight.
At the very least, I will still be able to unite the Russians and give them a mouthpiece to at least deny things with. That'll at least delay the proceedings. But without something to distract the other families, well, it's always easier to eliminate a small family than declare war on a big one, even if you think the big one was responsible for the crime.
Exactly.
So we'll have to find something then. Pity.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea to keep good contact on our other areas of influence too. There's always typically a shell game happening. This might be a diversion.
Well, there's also the possibility that Sam is not involved other than simply capitalizing.
That's true too.
But if it wasn't him, then I'd have to wonder who it was.
Well, we still have quite a deal of unrest that is happening in the city, so...
Yeah, well, we'll determine something at some point. Since that idea has been firmly torpedoed, I will leave it where it lies. Oh, well.
Well, it was a beautiful idea.
Yes, and now I can't use it again, because if I ever do, she'll be able to point to me. Damn it.
Oh, come now. We can retool it and put it together. It's like a gown. Deconstructed, reconstructed. It'll be fine.
True enough. Well, in any case, if Ghost does return before too long, perhaps we can. I can talk to her briefly, but we'll see what happens.
I'll make sure she contacts you the second she comes in.
Much appreciated. With that, he gets up and makes his way towards the door.
It's always a pleasure, Vasily.
Of course. And with that, he heads out, and that's a good place to end our scene. Thank you, players for players, watchers for watching, and have a good evening.
All right. Good night.